All right, so for this lesson, we're going to be adding sign decimals. It's super easy, guys. So it really shouldn't take me that long to get through, and I'm sure you're going to understand it. Shouldn't be a problem if you understand adding integers. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. And so we're going to look at the recall. It says to add or subtract decimals, you're going to line the decimal points up. And we know that because we've been doing basic skills for, quite some time. To add and subtract, those decimal points have to be lined up, okay? Also, it's important to remember that if a decimal point is not visible in a number, like if you don't see a decimal in a number, one can be placed at the blank of the number, and that would be at the end of a number. And we know that too. We've gone over adding and subtracting decimals so much. All right, so now let's go on to this. Adding sign decimals and fractions is as easy as adding integers, guys. Integers are just positive and negative whole numbers, or whole numbers and the opposites, and you're going to see that again. You just need to use the same thinking as you did, like with everything we've been doing with the number lines or the algebra chips. And guys, please make sure you're pausing the video and taking these notes, because each set of notes is worth 100 points, which I will grade collectively next week, all right? You'll get one big grade for all your notes. Make sure you got all of them. Take every single note. All right, so let's go ahead and just go back to the thinking about the chips or the number lines. All right, so I just did chips. If the chips are the same color or on a number line, the arrows go in the same direction, you should add the numbers and keep the sign, okay? If the chips are different colors or on a number line the arrows go in different directions, you should subtract the numbers and take the sign of the larger group. If you got more positives, make it positive. If you got more negatives, make it negative. Again, pause the video and take the notes like you need to, guys. So if you need to pause right here and write this down, go ahead. All right, let's take a look at some examples. So all we're going to do is determine whether they're positives or negatives, guys, whether they would be red chips or yellow chips, whether they would go in the same direction or different direction. So I'm just going to do direction. Because that's a negative, I know I would have to go to the left of the zero. Plus positive, I would have to go to the right, okay? But we know when they go in different directions or they're different signs or different colors, if we're dealing with chips, that we're supposed to subtract. When you subtract, guys, I need you to put your larger group on top. So the larger group is this one with the whole number 23. It's not about the length of the decimal. Just look at this whole number. This whole number is 23 and that whole number is 14. The larger group is the group to the right then. So I'm going to put it on top. And I'm going to subtract. And again, you got to know what decimals to fill in empty spaces with zeros. And the decimals are lined up. So 8 minus 0 is 8. 3 minus 4 is not possible. So I'm going to regroup here. That becomes 8. That becomes 13. That's 9. 8 minus 8 is 0. 3 minus 4 again is not possible. I'm going to regroup. It's 13 minus 4, which is, let me see if I did. Yeah, that's 9. I thought I had done something wrong. And then 1 minus 1 is 0. And it's more to the right, or you can say you have more positives than negatives. So this answer is positive 9 and 98 thousandths, or 9.098. And that's all you do. Same concept as adding integers, positive and negative whole numbers, okay? Okay, let's take a look at number 2. A negative would mean you have to go to the left. Plus negative, you would also have to go to the left. Basically, these are just two negatives, guys. So they're the same, so you would add. So let's add them, but again, remember to line the decimals up. All right, I'm going to put 281 on the top. It doesn't matter which one you put on top when you add, just when you subtract. The larger group has to go on top. But now, keep in mind that these decimals have to be lined up. And then you have to fill in your empty spaces with zeros, guys. I'm going to add it up and see how many negatives or how far left it is. So that's 9, 8, 5. Bring down my decimal. 1 plus 4 is 5, 8, and 2. So because they're all negatives, or it's all to the left, and the only numbers on the left side of 0 are the negatives, the answer is negative. Make sure you're pausing the video and taking good notes, okay? Okay, let's take a look at 3. 3, this is to the left, or we could say it is negative. And then this is to the right, or it's plus positive, okay? All right, so I know that those are different, so I'm going to subtract. Now, I need to think about the larger group. Do I have a larger group of negatives or a larger group of positives? Hopefully, you're able to tell that 56 is bigger than 17. And the decimal in 17, we talked about this already, so I'd be disappointed if you didn't know that it didn't go, if you didn't know that it went in at the back, okay, or at the end. I'd be really disappointed because we've done a lot on this already. Well, you got a larger group of negatives. I'm going to put it on top, okay? Put the larger group on top whenever you have to subtract. If you're dealing with positives and negatives, okay? All right, 2 minus 0 is 2. 9 minus 0 is 9. I can't start off with 6 and take away 7. So I'll regroup, and that becomes 16. 16 minus 7 is 9. 4 minus 1 is 3. But it's more to the left, or it's more negatives than positives. So I make this negative. 39 and 92 hundredths. All right, you pause the video and try 4. All right, this is what you should have on 4, guys. This one has a decimal and that one doesn't. So I'm going to put it there. And I know that 125 positives, that's to the right. We say they're just positives. And then I have plus negative. That's to the left. Or I can say I'm adding some negatives, guys. So they're different, guys. They're different. So I know I'm going to subtract, but I'm going to put the larger group on top if I have positives and negatives. Okay, so the larger group. Well, which one of these is the larger group? Just look at the numbers in front of the decimal. That's 125, and that's only 12. So the larger group would be the one with 125. I put it on top, and I line my decimals up. And I'll make sure to fill in empty spaces with zeros. And again, we should already know this, guys. You can't start off with 0 and take away 4. Nothing to borrow from above the 7. Above the 7, nothing to borrow from above the 8. So go to the 5. It becomes a 4. This will become a 10, which will become a 9. So that becomes a 10. That will become a 9, so that can become a 10. And then I can subtract. 10 minus 4 is 6. 9 minus 7 is 2. 9 minus 8 is 1. Bring down that decimal. 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. And 1 minus 0 is 1. Now I have to consider that I have a larger group of positives, or I can say it's more to the right than it is to the left. So my answer is, of course, positive. And that is all you do. That is it. Same concept as adding and subtracting integers. It's just that we have to make sure those decimals are lined up and those empty spaces are filled in with zeros, okay? And you have to make sure that if you got positives and negatives, you put the larger group on top and not the bottom. Okay, let's take a look at one that has 3 decimals. So here, that negative 56 is to the left, plus negative is to the left as well, and plus positive is to the right. And I could just say, well, these are negatives, because some people are going to think of them as negatives instead of the direction. They're not going to think about the direction at all. These are positives. So what I'm going to do is recognize that these are the same. So when they're the same or they're on to the left, we add. So I'm going to add those. I'm going to line my decimals up. 56.9. I'm going to add it to this other negative one. And I'm going to fill in these empty spaces with zeros. I like to color code when I fill in the empty spaces with zeros. And I add 2, 8, 13, carry the 1. That's going to be 9, and then 5. And it's on to the left, they're negative. So I actually have negative 59 and 382 thousandths, or 0.382, plus that 682.9. Left and right, or positives and negatives, I'm going to subtract the leftovers, okay? Those two. Put the larger group on top. You should be able to see the larger group. Look at the numbers in front of the decimal, okay? 59 is so much smaller than 682. I know 682 positives or is more than 59. So I'm going to subtract and put it on the top. And make sure I line my decimals up. And I'm going to fill in these empty spaces with zeros. And I'm going to subtract. I'm going to have to regroup because I can't start off with nothing and take away 2. I'm going to have to regroup by starting here. This becomes a 10, which will become a 9. So that becomes a 10. Guys, this should be second nature to you all by now because we've done this too many times. 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 1, 8 is 1. 8 minus 3 is 5. Bring down your decimal. 2 minus 9 is impossible. Bar, that becomes a 7. This becomes a 12. 12 minus 9 is 3. 7 minus 5 is 2. And 6 minus 0 is 6. And of course, I'm a lot more to the right than I am to the left, or I can say I have more positives, way more positives than negatives. So I know this answer is positive 623 and 518 thousandths, or I could just read it as 623.581. Again, please make sure you're pausing the video and taking notes. All right, let's take a look at 6. It says, what is the sum of negative 45 and 200s plus and 5 and 281 thousandths? So sum just means you're going to add. So I'm going to take negative 45 and 200s and add it to this number. That's it. Let me write that a little better. All right, this is to the left. This is to the right. And what I'm going to do is subtract because they go in different directions, or they're different. They're different signs. But put your larger group on top, and we should be able to look. 45 is bigger than 5. That's going to be my largest group. So I'm going to write it on the top. Make sure those decimals are lined up, guys. If you don't line them up, you're going to be in trouble. And you also need to fill in empty spaces with zeros. And let's subtract. 0 minus 1 is impossible. Regroup here. That's 9. 1 minus 8 still can't do. Can't borrow from that 0. So go here. That becomes a 4. So that becomes a 10. Still not helping me with 1 minus 8. So this becomes a 9. So that can become an 11. 11 minus 8 is 3. 9 minus 2 is 7. Bring down the decimal. 4 minus 5 I can't do. Regroup. And this 4 will become a 14. Now 14 minus 5 is 9. And 3 minus 0 is 3. But it's way more to the left, or I can say I have more negatives than positives. So this answer is negative 39.739, guys. And that is all you do. Okay, let's take a look at some application problems. I think we got 2 of these and then we're done. So this is a very quick lesson. All right, 7. And please make sure you pause the video and write this down. Write down the word problem. A chemist has a mixture with a temperature of 3.5 degrees Celsius. Then the chemist cools the mixture. So this chemist cools it down. The temperature changes by negative 14.2 degrees Celsius. In other words, it drops. Okay? If it's negative, it's dropping. What is the temperature of the mixture after it cools? So I want to write an expression to represent the situation first, and then we're going to show our work to get our solution. So, of course, you should be pausing the video to make sure you've written this down. And I'm just going to start off with what I have. 3 and 5/10 is going to be my expression. Now, this temperature changes by this much, so I'm going to add, in other words, it's dropping. So I'm going to add the negatives to indicate that it's dropping 14 and 2/10 degrees. All right, so this is to the right, plus negative is to the left, or I can say I got negatives and positives, so let's subtract. Show your work. So here I'm going to show my work 14 and 2/10. That's the larger group, guys. It has to go on the top. 14, I can't get it to just write what I want. Highlight what I want. It's highlighting the whole thing. Well, anyway, 14 is bigger than 3, so put it on top. And line the decimals up, filling in empty spaces with zeros. And let's subtract. All right, 2 minus 5. I'm going to have to regroup here. That becomes a 12. 12 minus 5 is 7. 3 minus 3 is 0. And 1 minus 0 is 1. And it's more to the left, or I can say I have more negatives. So the current temperature will be negative 10.7 degrees Celsius, guys. We should expect it to be negative, because if you start at 3 and then go down for at least 14, you're going to be on the negative side of 0. All right, pause the video and write down number 8. All right, let's get started. All right, at noon, the temperature in St. Paul, Minnesota is 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit. During the afternoon, the temperature changes by 4.3 degrees, which means it went up because 4.3 is positive. Excuse me. In the evening, the temperature changes by negative 9.3 degrees. So what is the temperature at the end of the evening? So we have some more than one temperature change, okay? So we got to incorporate all of those. So let's write the expression to represent this situation first. So what do we know? First of all, it starts off at noon at 3.5 degrees, and then it changes by 4.3. That's plus positive, guys. And then it changes by negative 9.3. That's going to be plus negative because the temperature dropped. So I'm going to take these two that are positives, or to go to the right, and I'm going to add them. And notice that this goes to the left. So I'm going to take 3, I'm going to add these two. 3.5 added to 4.3, line your decimals up. I put 4.7, sorry. Come on. That's going to be 8, bring down the decimal, 7.8. All right, so I have 7.8 plus negative 9.3 to the right, plus negative is to the left. And I can tell you that 9 is a larger group than 7. So when I subtract, I'm going to put it on top. Minus 7.8. And I'm going to have to regroup here. That becomes an 8. That becomes 13. That's 5. But it's more to the left, or you can say I got more negatives than positives. So this is negative, guys. So the evening temperature is negative 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Let me write my degree symbol a little better than that's too big. All right, so what I want you to do right now is just practice adding and subtracting decimals. That's it. Tomorrow we'll work on adding and subtracting. Not adding and subtracting, but adding sign decimals. And tomorrow we'll work on adding sign fractions, okay? Thank you.